Welcome back to the Rick Smith Show. Now, here is Rick Smith.
So UN Security Council, they've got evidently a meeting, just scheduled an emergency meeting on Ukraine this evening. And the thing that gets me is, what took you so long? I mean, seriously, you didn't see this coming? Now, a new poll out by the AP and NORC, they find that just 26% of Americans want to have the U.S. play a major role in what's going on in Ukraine. 52% want the U.S. to play a minor role. 20% say none at all. And I would say that 20% none at all, it's an interesting number. Those I would bet the dyed-in-the-wool, hardcore Trumpkins, the J.D. Vances of the world, the folks that, no, we shouldn't do anything. Just let Putin go where he wants. They're the trouble. Actually, I'm a little surprised that's not 30%, which is what I put at the hardcore Trump base. But we'll see where this goes. Here to share some thoughts on this, give some perspective and some historical background. I've asked Trygve Olsen to come talk with us. Trygve is the principal over at Viking Strategies, also a senior advisor at the Lincoln Project. Trygve, thanks for taking time for us.
Thanks for having me on, Rick.
So
interesting times.
Yeah, surprised it's taken so long for the emergency meeting?
Well, I think this is one, they've been having a few of them. This one was called by the Ukrainians because Putin wasn't picking up the phone when Zelensky was trying to call him today. I mean, that's shocking, right? Because given what he's about to do.
Right.
But I think, the UN has a lot of things about it that are relatively pointless. I do think the one thing that's interesting is that when they had the meeting the other day, the Chinese were not as gung-ho as they might have seemed to be. But it's just a bad situation.
Yeah, I don't think the Chinese care. I think they're looking at it to where if we allow Putin to go and take Ukraine over, if we don't do anything, if we act very, very sheepishly, that's going to give them carte blanche to go and take Taiwan, to take over the islands in the South China Sea, and to basically roll over, that entire region of the world. So for me, this is a double kind of situation where you can't give Putin the okay to go and get the old gang back together and recreate the Soviet Union, but you also don't want China doing it either.
No, and think about a guy like Josh Hawley, right? His whole thing's been, why do we care about the Russians? We should care about China. He thinks that and he should be smart enough. He's either the dumbest guy to ever go to the places he went to school, or he knows better, which you kind of got a Senate candidate on the Republican side in Ohio is like that. But he's constantly talking about China, and yet there's no logic. If he thinks that the Chinese aren't watching what Putin's going to do, to your point, he's crazy. He knows that, right? Yeah. If we don't stand together with our allies and make some serious consequences, they're going to do that. That's what autocrats do.
It gets worse, and that's an important word, autocrat, because I think we're in a moment, and I think this is not new. I'm not Magellan discovering new lands. This is a moment in this country where we have to decide, do we believe in democracy or autocracy? We have to decide which direction we're going to allow the world to go. And look, I don't like being the world's policeman, but at the end of the day, I would rather it be us than Putin or Xi Jinping. I mean, that's just the world we're in.
Well, and you know what? One of the things that I've talked about a fair amount, and I never really thought, I spent a lot of years working for an organization that was run by Senator McCain, and we worked together with Democrats. We worked together with the labor union guys at the Solidarity Center to help people in Ukraine that were trying to build a democracy, cross party lines. And one of the things that you've come to understand quickly with autocrats is they're all about fear. That's what Donald Trump does. That's what Putin's trying to do. That's what January 6th was all about. That's what bombing Ukraine's going to be all about. They want to make us afraid. And democracy is all about faith in each other. It's not about, what we disagree on. It's about me believing that you have the country's best interest at heart. I do too. And that we can have honest disagreements, and we're going to agree to have elections at regular intervals and all the rest. And it really is a competition between autocracy and democracy, between faith in each other and fear of each other. And we got to rally together.
Yeah.
Right now, that's the only game, because we won't be able to disagree, in the way that we've known, on things that we disagree about, if we don't have democracy.
No, we're heading sadly down that path. Every day it's getting much worse, I believe. And this is just another sign that shows how far we've veered off of reality. Because as I asked yesterday, when did we go from Mr. Gorbachev tear down this wall to a president going, Vladimir Putin's a genius and very smart and savvy? I'm not sure. Like I said, I pinned that moment with Pat Buchanan in '92 as the awakening moment. But I'm not sure when the full flip happened. But I think it was just before Trump, and I think he made it okay.
Yeah, I think that's true, and I think there's a trap that Trump world is trying to draw us into. You're seeing all these guys, Richard Grenell, Nikki Haley was doing it today. They're trying to say, well, Trump, Russia didn't do anything when Trump was in power. This must be that Biden's weakness. The truth of the matter is, they know that they wouldn't be doing anything different if they were sitting in the White House than what Joe Biden's doing, which is uniting our allies, creating consequences. They wouldn't be putting troops in Ukraine. It's not a NATO country, right? They don't want to start World War III. They wouldn't be doing anything different, but they're constantly throwing that out there because that's where they want the conversation. When in reality, we should be pushing back and saying, you guys are standing with one of the most murderous, notorious thugs of the 21st century, who's going down a path to join guys like Joe Stalin and others of the 20th century. Yeah. And so, that's where we've got to take the argument to them. It's a zero-sum game. You're either on team democracy or you're with team autocracy, Putin and Trump's team.
No, that's the Democratic message. That's the Democrats' message just this November. It is that simple. That and Republicans hate working people right now. It's my view. You're listening to the Rick Smith Show. We're here with Trygve Olsen. Trygve is the principal there at Viking Strategies, also a senior advisor at the Lincoln Project. Check out the work the folks do over at the Lincoln Project, projectlincoln.com, I believe the website. If you're just joining us, make sure you download the podcast. You don't want to miss what Trygve's got to say here. So, I'm looking at what Putin said. He doesn't want to get the old gang back together. He doesn't want to recreate the Soviet Union. I don't know that I believe that. I got to think a former KGB officer who's had a grievance his entire life about the breakup of the Soviet Union and the fall of the Berlin Wall and all of that, and the end of communism. I got to think that's a sore spot. So I got to think that's part of his legacy. We got to get the old band back together, and taking over Ukraine is a huge part of it. Belarus without firing a shot, that's got to be a part of it. Shouldn't that also be part of this message?
Yeah, I mean, absolutely. Think about, I think you were alluding to this either today or yesterday. Look at the people that are coming out on his side: Nicaragua, Cuba. He can say he doesn't want to put the band together. It's the same suspects. It's the same guys. Because the truth of the matter is, if our great grandparents fought the battle between fascism and freedom, and our grandparents' generational battle was between communism and capitalism, our generation, I think, and you and I are about the same age, it stinks that we got the Cold War back. Explaining that to your kids kind of sucks. Yeah. But our battle, our generational battle, and maybe theirs, is going to be autocracy versus democracy. And that battle starts right here at home.
Absolutely.
They're taking it to us.
And the thing that's frustrating to me, and as you pointed out, trying to have these conversations with our kids, trying to explain to them that, we lived with a fear in school too. Granted, their fear is that some idiot's going to come in with a gun and shoot the place up, which is a much more real fear than probably we had of the old mad mentality of mutual assured destruction, that at any minute now someone's going to be pushing buttons and lobbing nukes on our head. But to explain to them that that's the world that we were in, and that was something that united us as a country, and to see right now this huge split. And like I said earlier, there was this cartoon that I saw of, you had the elephant and the donkey on one side of the table and the bear on the other. That was the old Cold War. The new one, the elephant moved to the other side.
Yeah, it's crazy. It really, and you wonder, and this is something, I know you have some contentious races in Ohio. I'm from Wisconsin, so we have the same thing going on, right? Um, every single person who's listening, every single person around the country, this is true, but every single one of these guys needs to get asked on the Republican side, whether they're running for the state house or the White House. Do you stand with Donald Trump that Vladimir Putin's a genius? And if they put them in the spot, and if they say that, then we know where they stand, because they're not going to, if they think that, they don't have any belief in elections. They have no interest but other than to take power,
Yeah. Now,
and maintain it.
now, as we were talking before during the break, you said that your wife's from Lithuania. You spent years in that region of the world. What Putin is trying to sell, what we're being sold from our right-wing chaos merchants, is that there are poor, vulnerable people in Ukraine that are being abused, and that all Putin is doing is simply, sending support. He's a peacekeeper. He's a good guy. Did he ever call you a racist? Did he ever try to get you fired? No, of course not. Why would he do anything bad? Which is what we're being sold. Is there any reality to that argument that there's just this Ukrainian government that's cracking down on people, that Putin has to go in and rescue them and keep them safe and save them? Is that an actual argument?
No, I mean, there's no, no, not at all. I mean, if you watch, the entire thing is contrived. This is classic KGB mentality: create the provocation, create false flag, and undertake that. What Ukraine was becoming, and what it was clear to me when we were in Lithuania. I was in Lithuania in the summer. What was clear about Ukraine is it was becoming sort of a mini shining city on a hill in that region. It was slowly becoming winning democracy. Belarusians who had been in the streets protesting, others who were calling for democracy, Russians, they were flocking to Kiev. It's a threat to Putin. He feared that, and as a KGB guy, this is the way he executes things.
Yeah.
And the thing that people have to understand is, guys like that, most of us in the United States never end up encountering people like that. But for him, it's either his way or shoot you.
Right.
And what he understands is power. And, we have to stand up to him. We have to show we're not afraid, because that's what he wants. He wants us to be afraid.
As do our authoritarians here. Let me ask you this, Trygve, because I was spending today. I was reading a whole bunch of stories on Ukraine, and going back and rereading stories about Crimea and that, and what Obama did, because of course this has become a black and white issue, and anyone who's thoughtful understands that virtually nothing is absolute black or white. No one's absolutely wrong or right on any issue, although that's what the Twitter sphere keeps telling me, that it was all Obama's fault. Ukraine's been a mess for kind of a while, and there's been this kind of, this kind of back and forth where, I don't know how to explain it to where we get an accurate way of kind of understanding it. Is there a way that you can explain it that maybe folks will be able to not just take that black and white view? Does that make any sense?
Yeah, it does. So Ukraine, and this is true of Belarus to a degree, because of where they're located geographically, they've always kind of been transition lands in between East and West, right? It's just sort of where they sit. It also has meant that when Europe was going through a period of having massive conflict, you had Napoleon and Germans and Russians. You had lots of people marching through those places. And so the evolution of Ukraine, because it's kind of a crossroads place, the evolution of Ukraine and the desire of countries, particularly the Russians, but the Ottomans too, to hold it and dominate it, is something that's been true for a long time. But Ukraine, Putin has known there is no Soviet Union without Ukraine. There is no It just wasn't going to happen. So, in a way, Ukraine, they're sitting in a position where they're located becomes strategically important, particularly for the bad guys.
Yeah, no, and that's a good way. That's a good way of explaining it. Let me ask you this, because Trump said yesterday, Biden has done nothing. Some of the comments I heard on Rage Radio today, were, Biden's doing nothing. He's ineffective. Let's talk about the sanctions. Are they enough? I mean, some of the reports I saw, said they were a thud today. What kind of a grade do you give how the president has reacted, and what kind of sanctions have begun? What are your thoughts?
So, as I said before, I think there isn't a single Republican that if they were in office, other than completely appeasing Trump and saying, here, take it, there isn't a single person that would be if you'd have had if Ronald Reagan were in office, he would be doing what Joe Biden is doing right now, right? Like, he would be gathering our allies together and saying we have to be strong and confront this. We have to create economic consequences. The sanctions that they put in place, as best I can tell, it's a first step. But I will say the big ball to drop in some ways for Putin to get his attention, the first one was the Germans canceling Nord Stream. The other thing is that Putin fears, beyond democracy, is he fears a bunch of elites around him. They have started sanctioning those people. There's conversations in the UK that they may go after their property, the yachts. Those are real consequences, because those are ones that can massively impact, and they're happening because America is leading. America is best and always has been, whether it was John Kennedy or Ronald Reagan, Republican or Democrats, when we've led. And we've been able to lead because they're, to your point, it was the donkey and the Republicans sitting across from the bear. And that's what Putin is betting the house that our division will become division in NATO, and he'll be able to get away with this and probably a lot more.
So last question I've got for you on this, because you brought up the division, and this is where I wanted to end. If I'm Putin looking at this country right now, I see truckers, truckers convoy, even though it was one guy, driving down the road here in this area. I see division. I see angst. I see, people with F Joe Biden flags flying outside of their house. I see that division from the outside. I see the kind of racist and the kind of homophobic and the kind of all of this stuff that is as pitting us against one another. And I see this as a moment to be able to do whatever I want, because there won't be a consensus. Do you think that had much to do with his decision to go this route? Because, again, you alluded to it earlier. The right is saying if Donald Trump were in office, Putin would have never done this. I disagree. I think we would have just given it to him, but that's a whole other argument. Do you think that visual of our division led to this?
Yeah, I think so. I mean, on January 6th, I was actually in Europe. And I was in Lithuania. We happened to be over there. And I will tell you, across Europe, they're like, oh my God, this is bad, really bad. If people go online and want to do a little bit of your own research, Google what world leaders were saying that with what they were seeing on 1/6. That's the kind of thing that doesn't happen in America. It's the kind of thing that sometimes happens in their countries, but it's what made us exceptional. And you want to know what's made America great for all these years, for the people who that appeals to. It's the fact that our democracy was solid when it came to outside the United States, and we stood as one. That's what has, and so, if we're going to recoup that, we have to start solving this, and we have to, for those of us who are concerned about it, we have to be putting to people, do you stand with Putin and Trump and those people on Team Autocracy, or are you on Team Democracy? Because we can agree on that if we disagree on tax rates or whatever, right? Because those things, we're not going to have an argument be able to have an argument about them if that side wins. We're just not.
You're absolutely right. Trygve, I appreciate you taking some time for us. I hope, I'm sure this is going to continue, I hope you'll come back and share some more with us.
Yeah, absolutely. Anytime, Rick.
Good stuff. Appreciate it. Trygve Olsen, principal there at Viking Strategy, senior advisor to the Lincoln Project. This is one of those moments. It's one of those moments that you have to. We better figure out how to bring this all back into somewhere near the sane line, somewhere near something, if not on the same field, at least in the same arena. Because as these authoritarians look in at us, and China's watching, they don't care to get involved. I think they'd happy to see us. They'd be thrilled to see us in another foreign entanglement, expending our resources and then weakening our ability to react to anything, and still buying their cheap plastic garbage and being dependent on them. This is like one of the worst moments for this to happen, because I've been saying for years we need to rebuild manufacturing. If we get into some kind of a conflict, do we have the manufacturing capabilities to keep up? Will we get the little smart chips to make our smart things smart, especially our smart bombs? And will the American people put up with it? I look at how they're reacting now to a little bit of inconvenience. We're not the greatest generation. Steel up seems to be the response. Although I did see a very interesting story today, and it was one of those that's supposed to make you, I'm not sure if it's supposed to make you angry, it's supposed to make you afraid. I'm not quite sure, but the Telegraph in the UK reported on the fact that Russia has deployed mobile crematoriums. And I'm guessing the message in this is that they're just going to go along the road, whoever they kill, they're just going to evaporate. That was the word that they used. I'm not making that up. This vehicle-mounted crematorium can evaporate one human body at a time and has been seen trailing Russian forces. So they're just going to scoop people up. Done. But he's protecting people. He's a peacekeeper, protecting those people. And the thing is look, I'm with the majority of Americans. I don't want to get in a long drawn out conflict. I don't want us to be massively involved in this. But there's the flip side of this. And both Trygve and I talked about it. We both got kids. There's that mindset. If there's trouble, if there's pain and suffering, if there's chaos, let it be in my time so that my children don't have to suffer through it, so that they can lead a better life. Let us not leave a worse planet. And again, I go back to what I talked about last night. I remember the excitement, the opportunity, the thought that we were going to be able to experience the peace dividend. I mean, how wonderful did that sound? It was the peace dividend. We fought this long war. We suffered. We struggled. We sacrificed. It was going to be great now. Communism, the dreaded enemy, has fallen. They're now going to be like us. And, well, they took us to the extreme, because the oligarchs immediately took over everything. And a good old American capitalism, we had our folks go in to make sure that they didn't leave anything behind, no crumbs. So the working people in Russia, the working people here, and now the working people in Ukraine are going to suffer because of it. All because the very wealthy, they have figured out how to line their pockets and control industry after industry. Where does this take us? I don't know. It's got to come back to you and me. It's got to come back to us healing these divisions. Because like I said, if I'm looking at us from the outside, if I'm looking through the snow globe and I'm looking at the U.S., I see lots of fissures. I see opportunities, if I'm Putin, to continue to divide. With his digital army, who did a masterful job in 16, like it or not, believe it or not, they did a masterful job in 16 to swing the election to Trump. They did. And, unfortunately for Trump, he was such a bad president that they couldn't do it again. Not that they didn't try, but they tried to do it again. And now you've got the same people saying, well, if Donald Trump were president, Vladimir Putin would be afraid of him. The problem is, I remember Helsinki. The only problem is, I remember not a tough guy, not the Mr. Macho, not the hey we're gonna put him in their place. No, I remember a guy who fairly docile, someone who went into a meeting and ripped up the notes. How bad was that meeting? How bad? That's my question. Got lots of them. But we're going to take a quick break. Right back after this on the other side. If you're just joining us, make sure you grab the podcast. My conversation with Trygve Olsen was fantastic. You don't want to miss that. Get your podcasts anywhere you get them. iTunes, the iHeart, Podbean, the Stitcher, all over the place. Wherever you get yours, get it there. Quick break, right back.